welcome back to my channel. I'm Sara. If you're new here, I usually talk a bit about books, about writing books, about creativity and productivity and stuff like that. Sometimes I'll go for little walks, or I'll try something different like new recipes, or I'll go and buy books because I always like to go and buy books. Today I want to talk to you a bit about some books that I would like to take with me to a desert island. If I was stranded in a desert island, I would love to have these books with me. I would never grow bored there, I think. I don't know. I like to read a bit more than this, but these are my base. So these are my go-to books, and I wouldn't like to live somewhere where they wouldn't be with me. So it's kind of like a capsule wardrobe, which is in fashion. A few years ago it has become a trend. This is kind of the same thing, but with books. It's my capsule bookshelf. So the books that I would have to have with me. So these are my most beloved books. Each one of them has a story or a motive to be one of my most beloved. Some are classics. There are in different genres. It's not just fiction. There are poetry, non-fiction. There are a bit of everything for everyone. Just imagine you are sailing to a desert island and you have to choose some books to take with you. 4 things that I wanted to consider while choosing these books. One is something that I could read infinitely, so read and reread and then reread again and would not feel bored by it. The second is different genres, so I could switch between different themes and different types of writing. The third must-have was books that spoke to me, books that have meaning for me. And the fourth, one that I have never read before. Because I'm going to a desert island, at least I could have one book that it's new, so I couldn't read it for the first time. Yes, okay, maybe a hotel, maybe a great hotel in a desert island. Maybe that would be nice to have these books with me. The first book I would take with me to a desert island would be a tiny, teeny book, which is this one. So it's Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. This is a Penguin's Little Black Classics edition. It's quite small. It would fit anywhere in my luggage. And here Rilke gives life-changing advice to a starting poet. So this is a collection of letters between Rilke and that young poet. There are a lot of knowledge in here, very meaningful things, at least for myself and for any poetry writer or writer. This would be a must-have. The second book is the heaviest of this group. So it's the Lord of the Rings. It's the trilogy. I am sorry for this ugly sticker. It doesn't come off. It's so well glued that I can't take it off. Not without damaging the cover. This is kind of a pocket-size edition of the 3 books of the Lord of the Rings. It has quite small print, but it doesn't matter. I have here I have other versions of it, but I wanted to have the English edition and I got this one, so this would go with me to my desert island. Third book of my desert island bookshelf, it would be this one, G.R. Ward's Lover Eternal. This one is one of my favorites from the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. This is the series that I have read the most number of books from. So it's 17 and counting. So I don't intend to stop reading this series. It has a few themes that I find very relatable. It talks a bit about exterior appearances, about a curse, about human sickness, about how people view one another when they don't know them, and how two improbable partners end up meeting each other and falling in love. So I like this book. It has one quote that I love and that I wanted to share with you. So it was right then and there that she'd realized that there was no quota in misery for people, no quantifiable threshold that once reached, you got miraculously taken out of the distress pool. Fourth book, my beloved poetry. So it's The Mad Fiddler by Fernando Pessoa. So this is a edition that has Portuguese and English at the same time. So it's a book that has been with me for a lot of years. I think since preteens. So it's quite dark here. It has some spots. This edition was translated to Portuguese by José Blanc de Portugal. Because it was originally written in English. Fernando Pessoa was born in Lisbon, but he was raised and he lived a few years in South Africa, so he learned English and write and spoke English perfectly. So this is one of his works written in English and then translated to Portuguese. He had only one book which was published while he was alive, written in Portuguese. So all of his other works were only published after his death. Fifth book, it's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus. This is a story about a young student that performs a grotesque operation using body parts of corpses, giving life to a monster. This object of his creation is very upset about his condition. He is rational, so he understands what happened to him and is quite affected by it, and makes his existence about punishing the man that created him. Sixth book, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. Some instructions on writing and life. I have spoke a bit about this book or I have shown this book as one of my favorites throughout the years, so this one I have read it a few times. It is funny, it is witty, it is insightful, it's inspiring. It's about pursuing writing and pursuing a life that has meaning for us, and it's a great read, not just for writers but for other people as well. Seventh book, The Old Man Who Read Love Stories by Luís Sepúlveda. So let me see if you can see it better, like this. This is a very short book also. This would be very easy to pack into my suitcase. This is only 110 pages. So this is a story about living in the wild, about the dangers that animals and people pose to each other when they try to settle in inhospitable environments for them. So this is set in deep jungle. It's sweet, it's bloody, it's real, and the main character is very interesting. We kind of relate to him and understand his struggle better while the story is progressing. I think it will also be a nice book to read in the wild. Not in the jungle wild, but in the desert island wild. Eighth book, Persuasion by Jane Austen. This one is another one of my favorites. It's another short read. It's just a little bit shy of 200 pages. This is the last full story written by Jane Austen. It's a more mature work. It's a love story. It has a lot of social implications and settings, like it's her trademark. In the end, true love wins all battles, and it's a great read. Ninth book is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. This is my English edition. I really can't envision myself without having a copy of this book with me. I remember so well when I read it for the first time. There is something very relatable with Bella and her story, and there is something very captivating about the danger reality that she uncovers. It's kind of like we uncover it with her, through her. So it's very fun to read, and I do have to have a copy of this book. The 10th book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So the diary of the Roman emperor, which has been traveling through time and reached us. This is a pillar for Stoicism, and it's quite short read, and it has a lot of food for thought, and I think it would be a great read to have in a desert island. The 11th book is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This one was an immediate 5 stars for me. I love this story. I love Oscar Wilde's writing. He has some wicked sense of humor, and his characters show it in different ways, and I like it. It's very fun to read. It's a great classic. It's short also, 200 pages has this copy. I have a few notes here, that's why I keep looking that way, because I have a few notes which I don't want to forget. And we get to see the beautiful and the ugly of the human condition and the struggles with getting old and aging and death and things that people are willing to do to prolong their lives. Too much of yourself in it. Upon my word, Basil, I didn't know you were so vain. And I really can't see any resemblance between you, with your rugged strong face and your coal-black hair, and this young Adonis, who looks as if he was made out of ivory and rose leaves. Why, my dear Basil, he's a Narcissus, and you, well, of course, you have an intellectual expression and all that, but beauty, real beauty, ends where an intellectual expression begins. 12th book, A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I do love this edition. This is the Macmillan Collector's Library Edition. This was a lecture that Virginia Woolf was invited to give at Cambridge, and two different occasions, I think, and two different faculties of Cambridge University. This is the expanded version, so it was worked upon later. Its theme was woman in fiction. It talks about the role a woman has in studies, in literature, in writing, in a harsh time for women, when women didn't go to school, didn't learn to read and to write. So how women in fiction were even a theme. It's a quite interesting book. It touches a lot of things, a lot of facts of that time. Very witty. She has a sense of humor which is interesting. It's feminist in a way, in a sense, but it's kind of realist, because facts were facts, and there weren't many female writers known to the public, or even existed in that time period. So this is a very good read, and especially for women, it delivers so much insight for difficulties that we have suffered throughout the decades and throughout the centuries, not just in our right to have an education and to learn how to write and to read. And it's also a small book that would fit nicely into my luggage to go to a desert island. One could have sworn that she had the makings of a writer in her. But if I should not sleep this fortnight, I should not come to that. One can measure the opposition that was in the air to a woman writing, when one finds that even a woman with a great turn for writing has brought herself to believe that to write a book was to be ridiculous, even to show oneself distracted. And so we come, I continued, replacing the single short volume of Dorothy Osborne's letters upon the shelf to Mrs. Benn. The 13th book I would take to a desert island with me would be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So my second novel by Austen. So this is a Wordsworth Classics edition. How social conventions affected the marriage choices in this particular period of time. So it kind of has a love story in opposition to how marriage was viewed in that time as a social contract and as a change of economical value in society. I like that love ends up winning and love triumphs over the difficulties. Lizzie is a great character, but I do think that Jane's situation is kind of more recurrent than Lizzie's. 14th book, and I'm almost finishing. W.H. Auden selected poetry. This is a collection of poems selected by Edward Mendelssohn. These are some original poems by Auden. These are considered to be superior to later versions. I think he kept working on some of these poems and thought he was making them better, but there are a lot of scholars that don't think so. So these are the original. I love poetry. I think poetry is something that we connect with or not. We relate to it or not. So it doesn't do us any good if we try to read it just for reading it because we get it or we don't get it, and that's okay. I love his poetry. I think he's very relatable, and I think he has a melody in his phrases, in his words. I do enjoy his poetry. I have chosen a bit of a poem called Postscript. Weep no more, but pity me, fleet persistent shadow cast, by your lameness caught at last, helplessly in love with you. Elegance, art, fascination, fascinated by drab mortality, spare me a humiliation, to your faults be true. I can sing as you reply. I wish for nothing lest you mar the perfection in these eyes, whose entire devotion lies at the mercy of your will. Tempt not your sworn comrade, only as I am can I love you as you are. For my company be lonely, for my health be ill, I will sing if you will cry, I. This is the 15th book I would bring to a desert island with me. It's Emily Dickinson's Letters. I haven't read this one, so this would be the one that I didn't read and would be in my luggage there. I have read other authors' letters, compilations of letters, so I have read Rilke's, and I have enjoyed immensely Jane Austen's letters, even though they have been insanely curated by her sister after Jane Austen died, so we don't have access to Jane Austen's complete reality because she curated and edited it immensely, taking out everything that she thought might not sit well with the people who read the letters. But I had great fun. I enjoyed it immensely. This one has been recommended by a few people. I have read a bit about Emily Dickinson's letters, and I thought it would be a fun read for a first time reading experience. So this is the 15th book. 15 books that I would gladly put in my luggage to take to a desert island. It would be quite a great pile of it, so it will take a bit of space in my luggage, but I think it would be great reads and great books to have while I was alone and very far away from civilization. So yes. So if you have any recommendations for me for other books that you find that would be fun to read, that would be similar or connected to these ones in any fashion or not, or totally different, you don't forget to put them down below. So I'm always looking for good recommendations and books that are interesting to read and in different genres. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everything's okay over there. I hope you are okay. And I thank you so much for watching this video. And see you next week. Bye bye.